My name is Jim Manning. Thank you again for joining us. I'm joined today by Shannon Navin. She is one of our Microsoft CRM project managers. Our plan was to have Bill Owens join us, and that's whose name was on the invitation, but he's been called away. We're fortunate to have a lot of high-level projects underway right now. So we're going to have Shannon join us to do this particular session, which is, as you can obviously tell, best practices for CRM 2011 dashboards. Our agenda for today, if I can figure out how to advance the slide, is to cover best practices for creating dashboards, tips and tricks we've learned over time on how to do this the best possible way, and then to actually show you how charts and dashboards are created in CRM. So we're going to go beyond simple best practices into how-to session. I think that'll be valuable for a lot of folks out there, since charting and dashboarding is a function that's relatively new, introduced in full with CRM 2011. Then we're going to go into some other tips and then open it up for Q&A to provide you with the opportunity to ask questions of us. Along the way, though, you'll be able to pose your questions through the GoToMeeting console. When I switch chairs with Shannon here, I'll be monitoring those questions, and we'll do the best to answer them as we go along. So if you hear something that you need further clarification on, feel free to type it in there, and I'll do the best I can to address it in real time. For those of you who haven't attended a previous session, the Affiliated Resource Group is a national Microsoft CRM partner. We've been doing what we do for a very long time, which is 17 years. Obviously, that predates the existence of Microsoft CRM, so we do a number of different things here that are relevant to Microsoft CRM and make us particularly adept at CRM deployments, including being a platform partner for Microsoft CRM. So we have an in-depth understanding of the tools that Microsoft CRM is designed to leverage and integrate with. We also have a legacy in application development that gives us a capability to extend functionality of Microsoft CRM well beyond what comes out of the box, integrate with other applications besides Microsoft platform applications and Microsoft Dynamics ERP, and to tailor the system to suit the very specific needs of your business. We've been doing Microsoft CRM implementations as long as the product has been in existence, from the painful beginnings in version 1, 1.2, to current day in 2011 and all versions in between. We've got a whole stack of awards and certifications, the most relevant of which is gold certification for Microsoft CRM, which is not easy to achieve anymore. That used to be a cakewalk, and Microsoft's intentionally made that difficult for folks, and we quickly achieved that level of certification. Shannon Navin will be doing the presentation today. She has 11 years of CRM implementation experience, Microsoft CRM and others, obviously. She's assisted more than 15 companies with their Microsoft CRM implementations with Affiliated in versions 4 and 2011. Her background is in marketing, and that's a unique capability she brings to our team that we've been searching for a long time, an increasing focus of our customers. So we rely on Shannon to not only assist clients in making the best possible use of the in-the-box functionality for marketing and sales that Microsoft CRM provides, but to integrate some very nice relatively new add-ons from Click Dimensions, Broad Look, and others that really add a lot of marketing automation power to Microsoft CRM. She cut her teeth at JP Chase, which is a huge employer here where we are in Columbus, Ohio, and obviously a very large Fortune 500 company, and she's got those certifications as well. I'm going to hand the microphone over to Shannon here in just a little bit, but as is my way, I just wanted to ask a couple of quick questions of you so that we know who we're talking to. I see a lot of familiar names on the list here, but I think some of you are fairly new. So if you don't mind, I'd like to just get an understanding of your level of expertise in the Microsoft CRM application. The first question I have is, are you currently a Microsoft CRM administrator, or as opposed to just an end user? I'll give the folks here 5 or 10 seconds to answer that question, and really appreciate your input. And then I'll share the answers with you so you can see who's on the call today. I think today's topic in particular will be relevant to either administrators or end users. So let me close that and share the results. So you can see a hefty portion of the folks in attendance today are administrators, and a few end users as well. But again, end users can create charts and dashboards in CRM 2011, so you're not going to be too bored. Let me ask another question. Are you currently considering CRM 2011 or an upgrade to it? And this is very relevant to today's discussion because, of course, charting was very rudimentary in CRM CRM version 4 online, and prior to that, you really needed to use SharePoint in order to do anything with charting. But now with 2011, the walls have really come down, and the charting and dashboarding capability are a major advantage to the new version of the software. So I'll close and share. So you can see here most folks on 2011, only a couple here not considering an upgrade to 2011, but hopefully we can entice you to do that upgrade, and would love to have you ask us for help. Last question, I swear, before we go ahead and launch the system, or launch into the presentation here, and that is, how many users do you have on your system? And this again will give us an idea of how sophisticated the deployments for our attendees might be. A good bell curve distribution here I'm seeing. So a stack in the middle and a few on either end here. I'm going to close it in 3, 2, 1, and share. So here you can see who's in attendance. So some larger deployments, a lot of mid-sized deployments as expected. All right, so I will get off your back and turn it over to Shannon, who's going to get into the meat of the presentation, which is why you're here in the first place. Take it away, Shannon.
Thanks, Jim. Hi, everybody. As Jim has pointed out, and as you're well aware, we're here to talk about best practices for dashboards today. Dashboarding being a relatively new and very powerful piece of functionality for 2011 that folks are pretty excited about. I am going to go back and forth a little bit between the deck and some slides and us just talking and actually showing you some things in the application. So there will be a little swapping back and forth. One of the things that I wanted to mention first when we talk about dashboards is that it's important to start with the end in mind. So you really need to know what you're trying to get out of your dashboard before you start sort of creating it and designing it. So think about who your consumer is for this dashboard, who's going to be looking at it, what kind of information do they need, and in what format, what's going to be the easiest form for them to consume it, and what are the different portions of that information that they're going to be most interested in. Starting with that end in mind, I really discuss when I work with customers, I generally talk about dashboards being a 3-step process. You have to think about first what you want to see, and that generally comes in play with your views. So am I looking at opportunities? Am I looking at leads? Am I looking at accounts? And what kinds of opportunities, leads, accounts do I want to have on my dashboard? Now, one of the great things about dashboarding in 2011 is I can have charts and views and lists that represent all of those different entities, but I need to make sure that I have the views of data set up in advance so that I'll be able to use them with my charts and have my charts be meaningful when I put them on on the dashboard. So that's the first step, is making sure that I have the views set up that I need in order to be able to create my charts and then my dashboards. The second step, as you probably guessed, is actually building the charts, making sure that what I want to display is well defined, and that I've determined how it is that I want to see this data. Once I've built the views and the charts, then I can create a dashboard and use those pieces of information that I've created together or separately to build a dashboard. So we really talk about it as a three-step process, and it's important to think of it that way. If you go to build your dashboard and you haven't yet built your charts or created the view you need in order to be able to see the data you want to see, you'll be stuck. So important to start from the view and move up in that fashion. One of the important things we talk about with pretty much all of our best practice webinars are naming conventions. And naming conventions can be really important in certain circumstances, and charts is one of those circumstances. For example, when you create a chart, if you want to show the top 3 customers or top 10 customers or top 25 customers in a given chart, but you only want to see that for the particular dashboard that you're building, you only want to see it for your top 3 customers, build the chart so that it includes information about what you're going to see, but not the filter on the who or the basic information that you're trying to display. So let me show you an example. As I say there, top 3 customers, not my top 3 customers. So if I go to the application here, if I can, here we go, and I go to look at charts on my opportunities. As most of you probably know, we have this pane here now that I can open so that I can see inline charting with all of my views in CRM. So I'm going to pop this chart open, and you can see that I have top 3 customers is the name of the chart. I've only named it top 3 customers because this chart is going to show the top 3 customers no matter what the view is that I've selected here on the left-hand side. So I don't want to name my chart my top 3 customers, because when I change this view from my open opportunities to all open opportunities, these are now no longer my top 3 customers. These are opportunities for the top 3 customers regardless of whoever they belong to. When I switch back to my 3 opportunities, so the important part here about naming conventions is to make sure that you name your chart without the filter information included. You don't want to include that information. You do also want to name your charts. When you go to look at charts, you will see a list of the possible charts that you can choose. You want to make sure that you include in your chart selection, in your chart naming, all of the chart selection options. So what does this chart exactly show? It shows my top 3 customers by status. It shows top 3 customers by owner. What are the parameters that are in that chart so that as I pull the drop down, I know exactly what I'm going to get in that chart when I display it. And you'll see as we go back and forth a little bit to the application that the charts are named with very specific information about what's going to be displayed in them. So naming conventions for charts themselves, one of the key building blocks of dashboards would be to make sure that you name the chart in a generic fashion with what it contains and not the filter information about which view you're going to use, and also that you're very clear about what the parameters of the chart are. So you can see here that we have listed the top 3 customers by status. Luckily, all of these are open, so you can see the status is only 1. It's open, but you have those same top 3 customers. But you can see that I've named those charts differently, top 3 customers versus top 3 customers by status, so that I know exactly what I'm getting when I pull down that chart. Naming conventions for dashboards. When I name a dashboard, I'm naming the dashboard to reflect everything that's included in it. And the dashboard can include charts, views, it can include iframes, it can include information across a variety of entities. And I need to be clear, it's a little more complicated when naming a dashboard. It's not simply open leads or leads by status. it can include all kinds of different information. So when I open a dashboard, I want to make sure that I've used a very holistic view in naming it. So if it's sales activity or sales performance, those kinds of information, all the different charts and views that make up what the holistic view of what this dashboard is supposed to communicate is important in naming that dashboard. You also want to make sure that you include the scope of the dashboard. So you can see that I've created one called My KPI Dashboard, and I've included in here, as opposed to what we did in charts, that this information is all related to me, that this dashboard does not include, when I look at leads by rating or I look at sales pipeline, this is not the sales pipeline for everyone. This is my KPI dashboard, and therefore all of these charts only include views that are related to my information. So two important things to remember when you go about naming dashboards. I'm going to give a few examples of charting and how charts are built in the system. We have a couple of new pieces of functionality, one of them being the ability to build multi-series charts. So I can still do very simple charts with one horizontal and one vertical measurement, but I now have the ability to do multiple vertical and horizontal measurements. And so I'll show you both a simple chart and a complex chart. My first simple chart, let's get back to where this is.
By the way, we got a preview of that multi-series chart capability with the initial release of 2011 and goals. Goals charting was always multi-series, and now they've expanded that to be that capability to be available with all entities.
Yep. One of the things that I'm showing here with my simple chart, and I just want to make sure that folks are aware of this, is that I can chart on any entity that is in the system. So this project entity here, we often have customers who not only want to track their sales, track their cases, track opportunities and those kinds of things, but they have other custom entities that they want to create information about and track information about. So what I've done here is I've created a custom project entity, and I just wanted to show you that it's absolutely possible to do the same charting and include in dashboards information about custom entities just as it is the out-of-the-box entities. So this active projects simple chart simply shows you a count of the active projects by month that are coming up for the organization. And you can see here, because on my slide it says active projects next to projects, you know which view I'm using. I'm using the active projects view. And you can see projects by estimated kickoff month, exactly what this chart is measuring. So I'm going to go back to the application and show you how that happened. So if I come to sales and go down to my projects entity, you'll see, and I've just created some simple dummy data in order to be able to show you how this charting works. I'm in a demo of the system. If I look at my simple chart, projects by estimated kickoff month, I can see it here on the right-hand side. I can swing this over to make it bigger if I want to be able to see it that way. I can also, there are a few other little things here. I can change my chart pane. If I come to charts along the top here and move my chart pane to top, I'll see it on top of my view, which may in some cases be easier for visualization of the data. I'm assuming that most folks know, but I think it's worth saying that one of the cool features of charts is the ability to drill down into the bars. So you can see here that I have 5 different projects in my view of all active projects. Up here in the chart, they're broken down, of course, into the month in which they're estimated to kick off. If I click on this February 2012 bar, my view limits to only the 2 projects that are estimated to kick off in February 2012. As far as creating these charts are concerned, when I come to the entity on which I want to create the charts, I think it's fair to also say that in order to build charts, you do have to have security permissions to do that. So that's worth knowing. If you come into your implementation, click on an entity, and go to the Charts tab and don't see things like New Chart or Edit Chart, it's probably an issue of security privileges. So when I came here, I simply went to my project entity and then clicked New Chart, and it gave me the opportunity to name it. So in that case, I had named it Projects by Estimated Kickoff Date. For my legend, and you'll see here one of the things that I really like about this charting tool is that it allows me to immediately see what I'm doing. So when I click project here, and then for my horizontal, I do estimated kickoff date, it gives me a view, a little preview of exactly what of the chart that I'm building. And that it really is as simple as it is. I pick my legend entry, and I pick my horizontal category, what I want to see across the axis label, across the horizontal axis, and it builds the chart for me automatically. You'll see here that I have all of the fields that have been mapped for project that I can choose from, and I also have them here to choose for my legend as well. And so all I did when I built this simple chart was do exactly what I just showed you and then save and close it. I'm not going to save and close this one because it already exists. If I did the same thing, if I left this screen, and that basically is a very simple chart. Not difficult to do. You can do it right there in line with the view you have created of the entity that you're looking at, right on the right-hand side or at the top of your data, and it's pretty simple. As far as complex charts are concerned, what I wanted to be able to show you was the ability to do more than one thing. So now I want to see the project by owner and estimated kickoff date. So I want to see how many projects there are each month, but I also want to see who owns them. Are they mine? Do they belong to someone else? Perhaps I'm the manager of this team and I want to see which projects are assigned to which person for the upcoming months so that I can better plan my resources and staff. When I come out here to the application again, just like we built the simple chart, I'm going to go to Charts, New Chart, and I'm going to name this one Projects by Owner by Estimated Kickoff Date. And again, when we talked about naming conventions, we don't want to name this My Projects. We don't want to name this Open Projects. We don't want to name it All Projects, because we can change the view to change what this chart is going to show. So it's just Projects by Owner by Estimated Kickoff Date. So now I'm going to do Project here, and along the bottom I'm going to choose Owner, and then I'm also going to click on Add a Category and choose Estimated Kickoff Date. And now you can see that it's building the chart that I just showed you in the PowerPoint slide. And I've got the two measures on the same group of data. If I leave this screen and go back to where I've already built this, when I pull this drop down to look at the chart, projects by owner and estimated kickoff date by month, again, I have 3 projects here for Shannon, 2 in February, 1 in April, 1 for Stephen and 1 for Bill. And again, if I click on any of the bars, it takes me right into that information about that project. And I could double click on this line and it would take me to the basic information for that one project that was part of that bar. That is the basic information about how to build charts. It's really not very complicated. Microsoft has done a great job making it relatively intuitive. I save these charts. I guess one thing that is worth talking about, and we'll talk about it a little bit more when we talk about dashboards as well, what I've just created there is a personal chart. I created a chart that is part of what I see when I pull down the drop down for charts. If there were system charts, so for example, when I'm on opportunities and I'm looking at charts, I see top 3 customers by status. I also see a couple of charts that I created on my own that are only visible to me down here at the bottom. To create system charts, I'm simply, first of all, I have to have administrator privileges, and when I'm in settings, settings customizations, and I go to the entity that I want to customize, for example, we were on project before, I can go to my project entity, if I knew the alphabet, and you'll see that charts is one of the options under project, and I can create new charts from here. When I create the new chart using exactly the same process that I used in the other method that I showed you and save it, this chart will be available system-wide for everyone. If I do it from the chart tab on the entity in my own view, then I'm just creating a chart for myself. Important to note that you can share those. You can also reassign them, and we'll talk a little bit about some tips and tricks for sharing and reassigning the charts. But again, if I create my new chart from here, it's a personal chart. It'll be in my charts. If I create the chart from customization in the under settings, then it's a system chart, and I need to have administrative rights to do that. Let's see where we are in our presentation. Okay, so we talked about simple charts. We talked about complex charts. Let's talk about the dashboards. I have some examples of some dashboards that I've created. This is a system dashboard, and this is the same thing that we just talked about with regard to charts, but it's important to keep in mind. There are two places where you can create dashboards. You can either create dashboards for yourself, or you can create dashboards for the organization. And it's very much a similar process. When I go into the application and I go to create a dashboard for myself, I'm going to be in my workplace, and I'm going to look at dashboards, and I'm going to click New. And anything that I create here, I'm creating for my own personal use. I can share it, I can reassign it to someone else, but it is not a system dashboard. Anytime I want to create a dashboard for the entire organization, I need to go into Settings, Customization, customize the system, and go all the way down past all of the entities to a section that's specifically called Dashboards, and build my dashboards there. And so you see here that I can click New here as well and build a dashboard. Let's go back to how you build a dashboard and what these dashboards look like. So let's say that I'm going to build a dashboard just for myself. I come to dashboards, and you can see that I built this one that I'm calling my KPI dashboard. And when we talked about naming conventions, we talked about naming it for its scope, and specifically for its scope, and also for what it's targeted at in general. So these, I'm making the case that these are my KPIs. These are the things that are important to me. I need to know who my open leads are and how they're rated, what's in my sales pipeline, what projects of mine are estimated to kick off and when they're estimated to kick off, my customers, which ones have cases open, and what priority are they. And so that I can also click into this and see who has cases open, what's going on with them. If I'm getting ready to make a phone call to a customer, I need to be able to know what's going on with them in service so that I'm not calling and asking them to do something further with us only to find out that they're having a problem that I don't know about. I also have my activities. So these charts and lists are all related to me, thus my KPI dashboard. And they're all related to things that I'm measuring to make sure that I'm performing my job on a day-to-day basis. When I built this dashboard, I simply came to Dashboards, New, and I get the opportunity to pick what I want the dashboard to look like. Do I want 3 columns? Do I want 2 columns? Do I want 3 columns over a large, 3 small boxes over a large one? Generally, I start with the 3-column regular dashboard because I do have the ability to make things larger and smaller as I go. So I named this dashboard my KPI dashboard. And then when I come to my first box that I need to fill, I have choices here. I can insert a chart, I can insert a list, I can insert an iframe, or I can insert a web resource. You probably noticed that I inserted a chart for my first one, and I choose the entity that I want the chart to be about. This is where I talked about you need to have your views and your charts ready when you build your dashboard. So I'm choosing that this is a lead entity chart, and I want it to be about my open leads. So I needed to have that view available. If it wasn't already a system view, I needed to create it for myself, and then I can choose my chart. And so I needed to have the chart that I wanted also available here in the drop-down so that I could pick it. And we did leads by rating on my dashboard. I click OK, and it pops it right in there. When I talked about, and you can see that it continues to label, it labels what the chart is about and which view it is using. You can also, as I mentioned, starting with the 3 boxes, 3 small boxes on top, 3 small boxes on the bottom. I can increase the width of this if I want it to take up the whole top row, I simply click that box and click increase width. I have decrease width, increase and decrease height. So I can really make these any size that I want, which is why I usually start with the 3 standard boxes and go from there. So that was how I added a chart to my dashboard. I continued across the top to add the other charts that I had identified, and you saw those in the dashboard. I won't go through that process 3 more times just to make a point of it. And then I had a list on the bottom. So when I insert list, these are really my views. And so what I did was I chose my view, chose activities, my activities, and I said okay. And one of the things I will mention when we talk about tips and tricks is you need to make sure that a list has enough room to function. Generally, you want to put the list at the bottom. It's the easiest place to be able to see it. You can make it larger, and it's not, sort of crunched into a top corner with a chart where it's going to be difficult to read when you're done creating it and you've published this. So those are the things I did. I simply added charts, 3 charts in the 3 boxes. I added another chart here, and then I did a list here and expanded it to 2 of the boxes so that I could have a KPI dashboard that showed me all of the information that I needed. Again, I can drill into all of these charts so that I can see the information that's in them. It's a little different when they're on a dashboard. You need to know that there's a little button here that says view the records that are used to generate the chart. When I click on that, it's going to show me that chart and the records that are part of it. So this is all of the open leads, my open leads. This is leads by rating, and when I click on the 5 that are rated warm, my view changes so that I see the 5 that are rated warm only. Jim, are we getting any questions, or we're doing okay?
I've had a few along the way, but if anybody has questions along the way, please just go ahead and enter them into the question box on your control panel, and I'll hit them as they come up.
All right. So that is a personal dashboard that I created. If I want to share this dashboard with someone, I simply click on Share Dashboard. One of the recommendations that we always make, and you'll see this on one of the slides that we cover in a minute, is to share dashboards and charts with teams rather than users. If you share a dashboard with one other person, or share them with individuals one at a time, and then you leave the organization, or 1 or 2 people leave the organization, it may be that those dashboards are inaccessible or charts are inaccessible. If you share them with a team, then going forward, all anyone would have to do is put a user onto that team, and they would be able to access that dashboard again. So with any organization, you have turnover, you have people changing roles, changing companies, and you want to make sure that you don't lose access to any of these things that have been built. So when you share dashboards or charts, it makes sense to share them with teams rather than individual users, so that people aren't having to call you at your new job to ask you how to get to the dashboard that you built. We talked about the system dashboards. We talked about personal dashboards. Sorry, I went back to the wrong place there. We talked about system dashboards. We talked about personal dashboards. And so I think we're on to tips and tricks. The recommendations that we make from a best practices perspective. First, lists function best when they're placed at the bottom of the page. It's a good place to be able to see them. They have enough room to be able to function. And generally, the charts have the most pop. And dashboards are sexy. Dashboards are one of the 2011 features that allow upper management a lot of visibility into things and the ability to get a lot of buy-in from upper management on the CRM system. And so leading with the charts that explain complex data in more simplistic ways, generally what we recommend. Lists also just function better when they're at the bottom of the page. We find that dashboard information should be arranged from right to left, top to bottom. That's how people read and consume information. So whatever is most important should be in your top left corner, moving across the top in the boxes, and then go back to the next row over to the left, just like we read in English. We find that that's generally how the information is consumed, and so that's the order of priority that we like to see the information entered in. Iframes. I didn't talk about the ability to enter iframes, so let's go back and talk about that a little bit. When I was building a dashboard, one of the options that I had here was the option to enter an iframe. An iframe is basically a call out to something else that exists on the web. So let's say, for example, that I want it on this dashboard to be able to go to another website. So I want to be able to look up information about my customers. And I have a relationship with Hoover's, and I'm going to go out to Hoover's and look up information about the particular accounts that I'm calling on. I can use an iframe to simply put that URL into the chart, label it, and say, okay. Now, when I create this dashboard, there will be a link there that will take me directly to the Hoover's webpage. On tips and tricks, what I was referring to here was the fact that I need to make sure that if I'm adding an iframe to a chart, the information has to be stored in a location that's accessible to the user. So if you put, for example, a link to something on your intranet in one of those dashboard boxes, and not everybody has access to that location, or you have to have a VPN connection to be able to access your intranet, but you're not always on VPN. You know, you're accessing CRM from the hotel lobby. You won't be able to see that information. So very important when you add iframes to make sure that the information that you're pointing to is accessible to your users.
Shannon, we've had a question about what the definition of an iframe is, and I've done my best as a non-technical resource to answer it, but maybe you could define that and also distinguish an iframe from a web resource.
Sure. An iframe, think of it as a portal. Think of it as a window into something else that exists. It could be a picture. It could be an internet site, anything that you can point to that's a file or a web address. You can use an iframe to basically go from CRM and use that window into it. Web resources are really code that has been written and can be plugged in to a dashboard. So if you have developers who have written code that do specific things, custom things with CRM, or if we've written code for you and created a web resource for you, you may be able to point to that with a dashboard as well. Yeah, you know, if there's a web, we've built a Bing map that basically points to the location of specific accounts on a map. So if you want to be able to see the distribution of your accounts geographically, that's a web resource. It's a piece of code, a little package that we've built, and you can point to it through the dashboard. And it's something, you know, that Bing map is something that we've created and are going to market and you know, would be able to purchase if that was something that would be helpful to you. You'd purchase that and then be able to point to that web resource and have it right on your dashboard. I hope that answered the question.
Yep.
Share personal dashboards with teams rather than users. We talked about that you want to, you know, make sure that access to a dashboard or a chart isn't lost if a resource moves or leaves the organization. Use teams and security roles if dashboards are only to be seen by a specific group of people. So this is a little more complicated, but basically, if you want to have a particular dashboard that a group of people should be able to see and no one else, set up a team and assign a security role to that team for that dashboard so that they have visibility to dashboards. Then assign the users that you want to that team and assign ownership of the dashboard to the team. So, for example, when you look at this dashboard, I could assign it to a specific team rather than me. I could have it assigned to an entire team. Once I assign that to the team, making sure that specific, when I'm looking at security roles, I'm not sure how familiar folks are with security roles, but when I'm looking at security roles, I can make sure that folks only have the ability to view dashboards that belong to them. So for example, system administrator obviously has all of the roles. But if I come to user dashboard here, I can make sure that this is set up so, and I think you guys can see my mouse and where I'm pointing, but you can see that the ability to read user dashboards is only for the user. I could and that includes a team. So I can only read and write dashboards that are assigned to me. And so in order to keep the security for a specific dashboard only to the group of people that you want to have it, you need to set up a team and assign that security role to the team, then assign the appropriate users to the team, and assign ownership of that dashboard to the team. It's just a little tip. We get questions a lot about, well, I want to have this dashboard, and it's not just for me, but it's also not for everyone. How do I share that? And sort of the final thing to keep in mind with dashboards is you need to test them before you publish them. Before you make them available to the audience as a whole, there can be major security issues with dashboards. If you think about it, I'm going to pull up the application again. If you think about it, here we go. A dashboard contains all kinds of information. And so when I'm here and looking at a dashboard like one of the generic ones, the Microsoft Dynamics CRM overview here, when I look at this sales pipeline, it says that it is a sales pipeline chart that's part of this dashboard and that it includes open opportunities. You can set up security in the system so that folks in one business unit can only see opportunities that belong to owners in their business unit. If that's true, a view of open opportunities is only going to include the opportunities for that business unit. Although it is all open opportunities, it's only all open opportunities that are visible to that user. And so you got to be careful that you're very sure about your security privileges and the security privileges of your audience. You don't want people making business decisions, on a pipeline that they think represents the entire organization, when in fact it only, we have clients who split out their opportunities so that only sales representatives in specific territories, that they can only see the opportunities for that territory. If that were true in this situation and my security privileges were set up so that I could only see the opportunities in my business unit, then open opportunities here would represent something different than what it seems to represent, which is all open opportunities. So you want to test, and make sure that you keep those security privileges in mind. Have the folks that are meant to consume the dashboard take a look at it before you put it out, and you take a look at it and make sure that it is actually reflecting what you had hoped it would reflect. And I think that is it for me. Those are charts and dashboards, the quick version, and I hope that information has been useful. I think Jim is going to take time for questions and answers if there are any.
Actually, I want to add one very important additional tip and trick about dashboards, and that is use them. They are an incredibly powerful adoption coercion tool. It's easy for bad, unupdated data to reside and linger in your CRM system, because people like me on the sales team are notoriously lax in keeping their data updated in CRM. And when it is visualized in a graphic form and published out to the world, you will be amazed at how quickly that data remains up to date. Salespeople want to have people know how much they have in the pipeline and to have their data accurately reflected, and to have people know that they're making phone calls, scheduling appointments, and that sort of thing, because that is how they are measured and judged. So I would encourage anybody who's not taking full advantage of dashboards and making them publicly available to anybody with CRM access to do so. Secondly, besides the sort of generalized reporting capability that dashboards provide, it also serves as a great way for individuals to get a single view of their world from which they can operate on a day-to-day basis. I constantly get the requirement when I'm in initial meetings with customers that salespeople want a single view of their world. So that's a great way to use individual dashboards so people can see a list of their leads, their current activity list, and their best accounts in list form, and maybe a couple charts, so that they've got an individual dashboard that they can operate from in a practical way every day. So that's my bit of advice here. We've had a couple questions come in over the question line. Shannon's shaking her head saying we have another one. What is it?
We have question about whether or not we're planning a webinar on security roles and how to administer them.
Good question, actually, because I'd intended, and I was about to forget to solicit input on ideas for future webinars. We have initially planned a 6-session series. We're in session 5 now, and we've had a lot of success with these webinars. They've been very well received, and quite frankly, they've been good for our business too. So our intention is at minimum to rotate through those 6 topics again. But we're certainly open to and would encourage ideas for additional topics that we can present on. So security roles, territories I would include in there, other topics related to security. It would be an excellent additional topic. And I think that's one that we may take you up on. Thank you for the suggestion. I think I have the capability to unmute all the microphones, but I'm very afraid if I do that, I'm going to get a lot of feedback on my system. So I'm going to not do that and ask folks to solicit questions in text form if you could. Are there any other questions out there? Any other suggestions for future topics? Going once, going twice. Well, good enough then. We'll call that a wrap. And again, appreciate everybody's participation in these web events. As always, we're here to service CRM customers, new and existing. So please do reach out. We're here. That's how we make money here, to sell services related to CRM, and would love to hear from you and to talk about how we can help you improve the success of your CRM deployment. Thanks again.